Good morning, fellow Plexers. Today's video is going to be about ripping a DVD disc and the difference between a MKV file and an MP4 file. So I've got MakeMKV going, and this is the only software I'll ever talk about because it's cross-platform. You can use it on Windows, a Mac computer, or Linux like I'm running it. And of course you need a Blu-ray drive with a patched firmware to do UHD Blu-ray disc. Regular DVDs or regular 1080p Blu-rays you can rip just by buying the program. Okay, so you see I've inserted 40 days and 40 nights. I'll click here. MakeMKV will analyze the disc. Then once we get this started ripping, I'll pause the video and come back to it. Alright, it's almost done. And the next step, we'll be able to pick what subtitles we want to include inside the container file. If the media has multiple audio tracks, we can choose which ones we want. We can keep them all, we can keep some. And I thought it was almost done, but not quite. So I'll pause the video and come back as we let this finish its process. And we're back. It took about a full minute. So we can explore what we see. It's got this pre-selected along with this. I don't care about this. Well, maybe I do. This is a small video. It could be something that could be used as an extra, so I'll just leave it. This is where the important stuff is. I do not need the French audio track. And I'll keep the stereo and the 5.1 track because that'll come in handy when we show how to manipulate the contents of this with MKVtoolnix. And for now, I'll leave the Spanish subtitle in also, but I'm not going to keep this other subtitle. So now we just hit MakeMKV, say yes to where the directory is going to be made, and then MakeMKV just goes about its business, and before too long, I'll have the rip of this to continue on with. So I'll pause the video again. And I'm back. We're down to the final moments of this rip taking place. And the estimate was about 30 minutes, 25 minutes at first, and it's really only taken about 16 minutes. And if I didn't mention it, MakeMKV does a one-to-one rip. There's no compression added in. If you want compression, you can use Handbrake to compress the file as little or as much as you want to make smaller file sizes. Alright, so we're saving it as an MKV file directly from MakeMKV. So if you're ripping a DVD, the software is choosing to rip it as an MP4. MakeMKV naturally creates a MKV. Okay, so here's the finished files. Let me take that, let me put it in this working directory. And while we're at it, if you've used other software to create an ISO, you can rip that ISO with MakeMKV also. I won't show that, but it's quite versatile. Alright, so now that we have this, we know this is the main movie. It's 5.3 gigabytes in size. And it starts up in VLC, and this is the extra video. It may just be a trailer. So if I right click on the main movie, I can open it with MKVtoolnix. And this is where I can manipulate the contents. If I wanted to remove the stereo track, I could uncheck it. If I wanted to remove the Spanish track, I can uncheck that. So before we do anything, let's go to the movie database. It opened off screen. Let me just use this as a source to copy and paste. Now, I could just rename the file, but seeing that I'm going to manipulate it, I'm going to click the output in MKVtoolnix and paste in the title. Now let me go back here. So these items can be further manipulated with their tags or their flags. So of course you want this as the default audio track, but it really only matters in media players that you want a certain track to load by default when you open them up in. Plex will load the default language track for however you've set your language for your client app or for your server. And you'll see these are subtitles. Now, if it were me, I'd remove them and then go manually get some SRT subtitles to either have alongside as external subtitles or to inject inside. And that's what I want to show you too. But let's just start multiplexing. So this is the progress. It happens quite quickly because it's not encoding anything. It's just changing the contents of the media container file. So that was going to be our output. And so now I have the movie named properly, and it's 5.2 gigabytes in size. And if we open that in VLC and pause it, you'll see we only have the one subtitle track and the one audio track. So let's use another example. Here's Beneath the Planet of the Apes, already in the MP4 format. If I drag it in, you'll see that this needs some adjustment. The audio track is not labeled, so I'll click this and we'll choose English. Someplace on the list. And you may not think this is important, but if you have a large Plex collection and you're trying to search your, not so much search, you want to use smart collections, and say you want to create a foreign movie collection and you create a smart filter simply of all your movies except for those with an English audio track, this English audio track movie would show up on that list because the language code wasn't flagged in the container file. So this is an example of you may find a movie in spots and whoever ripped it didn't know their elbow from the rear end in way things should be prepped for Plex. Another thing we can do is we can drag in this subtitle, and as long as it's append to the existing source file, it will now embed the subtitle into the media so you don't need to have it named properly alongside. So if we click on it, we can make sure it's marked as a default track. And if this did have the flag for hearing impaired, the .SDR, you could set that track here too. Well, let's click back in here. You could set that track here too. Well, unfortunately, I can't set that as a flag until I select it. Or maybe I'd have to do 2 rips. Let's find out. Let's start multiplexing. And the output's just going to be appended. Alright, so this is why I fly without a net. We had an error. So I shouldn't have checked that. So now it completed, and it converted the MP4 into an MKV file. And if we open that up, let's refresh. If we open that up, the video plays, and you'll see that the subtitle is embedded in it now, and the audio is labeled for English. And it's the same size. So MKVtoolnix is a great companion to MakeMKV. MakeMKV gives you a one-to-one rip without compression. And if you wanted to compress either of these, on my system, I can right-click and open with Handbrake. And I've got something old in the queue. You can decide how to compress, whether you're going to use hardware transcoding to do that, hardware acceleration. It really doesn't make sense too much because this is already a 40p media. And my final step with this would be to run this through Filbot. Let's do the rename only. And this gives it descriptive information, which is already in the file because this was run through Filbot previously. So it shows the resolution, it shows the codec used for the video, it shows the number of audio channels, it shows the codec used for the audio portion. And let's end this video by going back to 40 days and 40 nights. And let's drag in the final one. Now Filbot is going to give it the extra characteristics in the file name because of my custom expressions, which I've done many videos on. So it will also create the folder structure. So 40p, the extra information. And I also have Filbot set up to give me a
Discord notification,
a flag in the file name of whether there's an embedded English subtitle. And of course, everything's just as I would want it. So I know this video is a little disjointed, but it shows you how to rip with MakeMKV, how to manipulate with MKVtoolnix. And of course, I've got plenty of Filbot videos to reference what I've done with a file renaming. It really is quite simple, and it doesn't matter whether the format is MP4 or MKV. All modern Plex client apps handle them both. The file sizes are identical. It's just a wrapper. The video inside is still the same, and what's inside my Filbot expression tells you more about that. This could have been HEVC, could have been labeled as X265, it could have been labeled as AV1. The wrapper has little to do with what type of video that's inside. So if you're having problems with an MKV versus an MP4, the container is not your issue. It's how the actual video file or the audio file is encoded inside the container. And that's probably the most important information in this video. Happy plexing, and thanks for watching.